What's up, guys? So today I'm going to be talking a lot about Asian culture, and this is pretty much a call to arms to all Asian guys out there to sort of get your game up and sort of to raise awareness to all non-Asian people who are watching this video. So there's two big things I want to get out before you guys click away. First, there's a stereotype that Asian guys don't date outside of their culture, and therefore are not interested in girls who are not Asians. And that's not true. Simply put, it's not true. The biggest thing is that most Asian guys will be too scared. I mean, they have very low self-esteem. And sometimes they'll make that excuse to cover up the fact that they're scared to approach. And then there's the whole thing. The second thing I want to get out is that Asian guys, they feel like, just in general, this is a generalization. Obviously, I don't adhere to it, but Asian guys, they don't think that people outside their race would be interested in them anyways. And that's a huge thing as well. It's so huge. And these are two things that, I mean, they're so horrific. I mean, I recently was listening to this sort of podcast where there's this guy who was pretty much, he was coaching this Asian to approach this girl. And it was so horrific. Like, he stood there for like 20 minutes, sort of like pep talking. And then he had so many, the Asian had so many sort of these limiting beliefs that were stopping him completely. He was like, I can't do it, I'm too scared. And it was the most disgusting thing ever, because the amount of low self-esteem things that he was sort of saying to himself and sort of doing to himself was just horrific. And I mean, it's tough. And so I'm coming at you as a Asian dude who's very bad with girls still, who's kind of like gotten a lot better over the summer in terms of at least information, and ready to go out there and sort of try it as soon as college starts. And I feel like I've grown tremendously with a whole summer's worth of sort of information grinding and just information just to like improve on myself, so I don't have these sort of negative self beliefs anymore. And I'm coming out here to tell you guys, the viewers, that Asians, you gotta step it up. And that's the thing. Like, another thing that's very common, there's this dating expert who's Asian called JT Tran. The thing is, for him, the biggest thing he's found, other than what I've mentioned already, is that almost all women who are like white or Hispanic or black or African American, you could say, none of these people have actually experienced an approach from an Asian. Whereas if you ask them about approaches from any other race, they get it quite a lot. And this does have to do with cultural things, but I find like that's an excuse. And at the same time, I do see like Asian guys who are stepping it up, but there's so few, and I'm very proud of them. They're stepping it up because they know, like, if you're immigrating to America, like, you're in a different zone. Like, you have to sort of step it up or sort of be swept aside. And so some of these guys came from very dark places, similar to me, maybe depressing places, or just a scarcity like zone, and they've sort of like taken all of this in and sort of gone beyond that, and they're Asian guys who are approaching non-Asian girls, and I have to give it up for them. Like, that requires a lot of courage and a lot of sort of just balls in general. And it's such a rarity that still, if you go up to the average girl who's non-Asian and ask them, like how many times have you been approached by an Asian? and most likely they'll say like none or very few. Whereas if you ask like the same thing, they'll say, yeah, I've been approached by white guys tons of times. And so excuses are just going to be there to excuse you. Like, the thing is, you have to either step up or just settle for what you can get. And I feel like that's what a lot of Asians do. They sort of just settle for whatever they can get. And I see this a lot in my community here as well. Like 90% of the Asian friends, I would say almost 100% of the Asian friends like me, they don't really get me because they have all these beliefs in their head that are very limiting. Whereas for a long time now, no matter how low self-esteem I got, and I got pretty low self-esteem at some points in my life, I always felt that like deep down somewhere, like I was worthy and that like I could potentially get these girls. Possibly because during my life, I had a few interactions where these very good-looking girls were showing signs of interest, and I guess that sort of gave me sort of a little bit of like confidence deep down. But yeah, for me, I really never seized a chance. However, yeah, 100% of all the Asian guys I know, I mean, I've talked to them about this, and then they give like these very expected sort of responses, like, look, like, I hate to even say this, but look at me. I'm a skinny dude. I'm not attractive. I'm not physically good looking, etc., etc. And it's all this sort of low self-esteem stuff that's hurting you tremendously. And yeah, that's just the community, and I think it's potentially caused by Americans and just being around them. But even back in like the native land, you could say, there's a lot of sort of like the culture is that you sort of just do your own thing and then you just run into a girl yourself. I mean, that's kind of how it is in America too, but there's a lot more manliness for sure compared to Asian cultures, let alone like Italian countries, or like Eastern European countries. There's some countries in the world where it's so much manlier. The guys go out and approach and stuff, and I don't know. And the thing is, like, for the dating community, I don't think like there's a lot of Asians, and it makes a good point, because for me, I feel like a lot of times I feel like the exact same like a white person until someone like mentions that I'm Asian, or mentions the fact that I'm different. And that has occurred various times throughout my childhood. I would be in school and I'd just be like, I would be acting and talking like everybody else until someone brings up the fact that I'm different, either because I have some sort of accent that I never noticed, or just because of my appearance, and they'll make some sort of Asian joke and stuff like that. So whether you like it or not, as an Asian, you kind of have to, and this was mentioned before by a dating coach, JT Tran, during a podcast, but yeah, you kind of have to sort of acknowledge that sometimes. Like if you go into certain venues, like another race, say like white or African American, they can go into a venue like a nightclub or bar or wherever. By the way, I don't go to these venues, but assuming I did, like if a white person or African American would, they'd just be like, oh, it's another dude here. If an Asian walks in, well, yeah, then the whole place is going to be like, what? Why is there Asian here? And it's just sort of this preconceived, thin slice sort of generalization that they already have stored in their mind, that they automatically bring up to sort of stereotype you. And it's a natural human response. I mean, it's a survival response, but it's there and you can't get rid of it. And so you kind of have to sort of deal with that. Whereas you know, people that I thought was like the exact same as me, namely white people, they would go into these things and not have to deal with it. And then I wouldn't think anything otherwise until all of a sudden it comes up. And I mean, it's not a big deal. I'm not definitely not complaining about it, but it's definitely something there. It's a survival response. And I do see a lot of Asian guys. Obviously, there's different types, but the ones who do try and step up, they tend to go this very strange route of sort of playing the American stereotype. So I've seen some who will try and like pretend to be like the American frat bro in order to sort of wash away any stereotypes of them being Asian. Like they'll walk into a venue acting like the American frat bro, a little bit like over the top in order to, you know, draw attention to that and away from the fact that they're Asian. And I'm sitting there like, what the heck? I personally think that's a little bit of insecurity going on there. And I don't know. For me, I feel like for the most part, what I do is I usually just I just act like I am. A lot of times I just like ethnicity sort of washes away in my eyes, and I don't bring it up, and I don't really talk about it unless someone else does. And it's not because I'm like insecure about it. It's just that like I guess it's either because I think I'm white just subconsciously until someone reminds me that I'm Asian, or that I just think that I'm like this special person who's, you know, Asian American, but it doesn't really matter because I don't look at others and think this guy's white or this guy's black. I just talk to them as people until someone else brings it up. And yeah, that's just the world you live in. And I'm not gonna lie, you know, some dudes, like namely African Americans, I mean, they have a fun time joking around with African American stereotypes. And so, you know, when that's brought up, you know, I have a good joke about it. But for some reason, Asian stereotypes end up being insults rather than sort of stuff you can play around with. I mean, most of the Asian stereotypes, small penis, what else? Insecure, huge Asian accent, very good at math, very skinny, etc., uncool. These things, like, just by bringing it up or just joking about it, they end up being insults. So it's not usually the same as other stereotypes. Whereas, you know, with African American stereotypes or Hispanic stereotypes, sure, there are some bad ones, but I feel like there's slightly more good ones where if it's brought up, they can just like laugh it off. And yeah, that tactic doesn't always work. And so that's how it is. So it's pretty much a call to action to the Asian guys and to raise awareness to the non-Asians. And I mean, it is what it is. You can't really complain about it. And I wouldn't deem it healthy to wish about it any other way because that's not going to change anything. But, you know, I always wish we could just look beyond that. And it's not the case. So, Asian guys, final say, step up. I know most of you guys will probably never do it. You'll probably always be stuck in a rut. But at the same time, occasionally, I'll get a comment from an Asian guy who has it down pat. And I've seen many Asian guys who have they've come from dark places, maybe never as dark as me, but close to as dark as me, and they've sort of stepped out of it, and they've taken their lives together. They've broken the stereotype. Like, they're not like I've seen Asian guys, and this is a random plug, unsponsored, to another channel, youtube.com/, I think it's Healthy Gamer. This is an Asian guy who used to play freaking video games, World of Warcraft, and now he's changed his whole life so that he's now this super buff dude, super buff. And he just, like, you can see transformation in pictures. It's like before, like his smile was just like he was just unhappy at all times, and then through the pictures you see, like, as he's getting buffer, he's just like smiling more, to a point where, like, in his most recent picture for his most recent year, he's just like beaming. And sure, he's not perfect. Obviously, you can still see he still has a lot of obstacles in his life, but he's taken this by the balls and transformed his life. And on top of that, there's a lot of other Asians, very few compared to the large percentage that I know, but there's still some who I'm very proud of. They've taken the initiative to sort of break this stereotype, this mentality that non-Asian people seem to have. Oh, Asian guys don't approach because they don't like people outside of their race. They'll never approach a girl outside of their race. And that's simply how it is. And this is pretty much a generalization, because I know a few people who are like white, who are girls, who have come on to me, and I just haven't been feeling it. And for some reason they tend to be unattractive. Maybe that says something about me. But yeah, again, it's just a generalization, but it's still something that has to be changed out there. Asians, non-Asians, everybody, just hold hands. Okay, don't hold hands. That's a little weird. But just get out there, approach. If you've never done it in your life, just do it once to a non-Asian at whatever venue, bar, nightclub, or in the daytime, or wherever, and just do it so you could say, I did this once in my life. So, like, on your deathbed, you can be like, you know what? I actually did this. I didn't, fall into the standard sort of low self-esteem sort of Asian category. And this is a stereotype you have to break. I mean, a lot of it has to do with media in America. Like, that's just how media in America has portrayed a lot of Asians. And the ones who have rose beyond that, Bruce Lee, I mean, he wasn't in the media for too long before he died. And then the only two others are Jackie Chan and Jet Li as of now, and their English has never been good enough to the point where they could sort of take on the roles of like a masculine sort of really cool Asian that Bruce Lee did. And even if you watch his videos, like, he barely really talks in them, and they would voice him over with these sort of like very fresh off the boat, fobby sort of Asian sort of, not even words, they were just like squeals. It was like, ha, ha, ha. And there'd be very little dialogue. But, again, here's the thing that you should know about Bruce Lee. Like, if you actually hear an interview where he actually speaks, his English is on point. It's ridiculous. Like, I was not expecting that. It's actually on point. Very little accent at all. Like, he had an English accent. Like, that was how good his English was. He had an English accent. And yeah, I really feel like even then with media, and even now, it's just put Asians in a bad light, and a lot of Asians have sort of risen up and agreed with the stereotype, and maybe even enforced it or supported it just by how they live their lives. And I don't think this should be the case. And with Bruce Lee, I mean, the thing is, off camera at the very least, off media, he was quite the role model. Like, if there was this one interview where Chuck Norris was just reminiscing about Bruce Lee, and that is the type of sort of respect that I want one day from other people, other non-Asians, and the type of respect that I think we have the potential of just garnering as we live our lives. And it was just this respect of him as an equal. Chuck Norris he viewed Bruce Lee outside of race. He never brought up race. It was just him talking with Bruce Lee, viewing him as an equal, talking about him like they were just great buddies, and that was it. And he went on about it for like 20 minutes in a video, and he didn't even once bring up race at all, or view him in any sort of, lower regard. And that's all I have to say. So, thanks for watching. Leave your comments down below, and thanks for watching another unedited video. I'm actually doing an edited one now, and it's taking a long time. I mean, the raw footage is like 30 minutes, and I'm cutting it down to about like 15. But leave a comment down below if you've watched the whole thing. That'd be pretty awesome to hear. And as always, like, favorite, comment, and subscribe. Apparently the average click-through rate for these videos is like 1 minute at times, which is pretty bad because you can't really get much from the first minute. But I decided, it's enough trying to, shorten things. I wanted to get my whole spiel out, and I think I did for the most part. So, see you guys later, and thanks for watching.